Hello everyone and welcome back to COM 343 Video Editing 1 with Professor Harris. Today we're going to be going through Lesson 2 and we're going to be doing a whole host of things. Let's look at the goals for this lesson. So first thing we're going to do is create and set up a new project. Use the source browser to locate media files. Link to video and audio files. Import video and audio files. Organize project assets into bins. Preview clips in the source monitor. Rename clips and add notes. And then adjust source audio levels. So let's go ahead and fire up here on Avid. I did have already get this launched. As I was talking about in the last lesson here in the projects, once you find a directory that has other media files, other projects, you can see it displayed here in a list. You can also zoom in and out, and that'll let you change the view on what you're looking at there. You can also change this to similar ways it works in the bins with the different thumbnails, and you can even set representative frames. I'm sure we'll get into that soon enough. But now that you know your way around Media Composer, it's time to create a project and start your own work. Before you start a new project, you need to decide where to save it. You can always move the save files later. So most editing facilities use the standardized save location. So you may need to ask your supervisor or media manager, wherever you end up working, where they save their stuff, because you'd hate to come in as a new editor and absolutely mess up the save locations and all of that other stuff. So setting the save location, you can designate where to save your new project via the location menu. Remember this little guy here? You'll set it through this directory. But by default, you can choose between the shared or private locations that Media Composer automatically creates the first time you launch Media Composer. So like I was talking about last time, we have, and this is on Mac, it would be through Users, Shared, Avid Media Composer, Shared, Avid Media Projects. And if I open this up again, this is where we go. This is where it's sorted at. It would be through the users and so on and so forth. So sweet, and these are all those projects there. To keep it simple, you'll save projects for the course to the shared location unless your instructor directs you otherwise, and I am not, so I am instructing you to, yes, please save them in a shared location. Now let's talk again quickly about the difference between private projects and shared projects. Private projects are saved in the current operating system users documents folder. Anyone who logs onto the computer using a different operating system user cannot access those projects. So where shared projects are saved into a shared folder in a folder called Shared Avid Projects. Anyone who logs onto the computer can access these projects. So the locations for private and shared projects are hard-coded and cannot be changed. So if you accidentally save your project in something that isn't shared, I will not be able to access it. I've told you this before. Please do keep that in mind. All right, so before you create your project, you can also designate custom location for it. We could click the browse folder icon. We could set it to, and we will eventually be setting it to an Avid Nexus location on the COM 343 workspace. But Media Composer will add that new custom location to the locations menu. So when you hit this drop down, it's going to appear as one of these drop down options. So let's say you're saving multiple projects in the same place, it will save those directories up there in that locations dropdown. So creating a new project, with the save directory set, you're ready to create a new project. So we're going to save this to the shared projects that are already on the computer. So we're going to navigate to the New Project tab in the Select Project window. This is the whole Select Project window, as you can see here, New Project tab. We're going to click New Project tab, and we'll type the name of the project. Let's go ahead and type what should we name this? Name this lesson. We'll name this lesson 2. Why is my caps lock on? There we go. Lesson. Oh my goodness. This keyboard is not the same as mine. I will do lesson 2. And then click the format menu to select the desired format that appears. And then you can click create. It wants us to name the project Jacuzzi, and so never mind. We're going to name it Jacuzzi, Jacuzzi, Jacuzzi. and it wants the format. We're going to set the format here. We'll go to HD 1080, and we'll go 1080p 25. There we go. And we can leave the rest of the settings the same. As we get further into Avid Media Composer, we'll start talking about what these different settings mean, and so on and so forth. A quick note, once you set the frame rate for a project, you can never change it. Many other settings from format can be changed later, but frame rate cannot be changed. That is a hard set thing. All right. Jacuzzi already exists. All right, we'll go Jacuzzi. No. We'll go Jacuzzi 2 then. All right. Great. Wonderful. All right, I don't know why. Oh, it's got menus open because I had menus open last time, but we can close these because we already have our bin menu open up here in the right. Okay, so here we are in Avid Media Composer once again. Okay, so let's go over some things real quick. Be careful when naming your project. Media Composer does not offer an option for renaming project, so don't name your project anything less than what it actually is. So if you're working for I don't know, let's say you're editing a television series, you might name it like, I don't know, House Episode 43, and then when you make alternative versions of that episode, you'll edit still within Media Composer. You can have multiple versions of the same episode within Media Composer because you can make different sequences. So let's understand a few more things about Media Composer. At the operating system level, each Media Composer project is a folder and not just a single file. So if you're used to Movie Maker, if you're used to iMovie and things like that, that's just a singular file. That's not how Avid works. It's a whole folder with different files. So Media Composer creates a new project folder with 3 main files inside. A project file, which is a .avp, a project setting file, which is a .xml, and a bin file, which is .avb. That's pretty easy to remember with the Avid bin avb. This differs from other editing applications you may have used. Like I said, iMovie and other stuff is going to have a single file location, not a folder. Also, Media Composer saves additional project-related folders and bin files into this folder. So the project folder does not contain any media itself. Instead, it contains the information about your clips and sequences. In other words, your work. So this folder that it creates doesn't actually have your videos and your clips in it. It has sort of this metadata. It has this code language that it then uses to interpret those video files so that when you're working in Avid. And this can change depending on different settings, and we'll talk more about that. But let's just keep going here. To move or archive a project, you must move the entire project folder and not just the project file alone. So let's do a quick kind of like navigation here. If we go to this here in Downloads, I do have a project set up in Downloads. So we have the Rock Climber project. If I open this, this is where we're going to see all those different bins. We have the .xml, the .avb, and the .avp. If I wanted to move this project, there's no like one thing I'm going to move. I'm going to move this whole folder. So this whole folder would then get relocated to a shared Avid project save place, and then that would appear, this project would appear in the list, the projects list, because Avid reads those folders on top of each other. Cool. So understanding the project's format settings. In Media Composer, frame size and frame rate define a project's format. The format setting in the New Project tab controls how Media Composer processes media, including the available codecs for the capture, render, and transcode. So it's only going to have related codecs when you pick your specific format. As a general rule of thumb, select a format that matches most of your project's source media. So let's say you're recording and you're doing it in 1080p with your camera or whatnot. You'll probably want to make a 1080p project or whatever similar codec you have. If the selected format supports both 4:3 and 16:9 aspect ratios, the aspect ratio drop-down menu becomes active. So like features will have like settings. If you have things that can relate to each other, those will automatically appear as options for you in those format tabs. You can change the format settings after you create a project. That said, you cannot change the format family since it's based on the selected frame rate. For example, you can change a project from 1080i 50 to 25i PAL because both are based on 25 FPS. So there you have that. Like I said, features can change with similar kind of format families. So setting up your project, projects grow and evolve, so keeping them organized requires a deliberate effort. You can set yourself up for success by creating a structure for your project from the start. So that way you can easily access the assets that you need, right? So in Lesson 1, you previewed a simple project with 2 bins. In this section, you'll be learning how to create and name bins for a typical small project, right? So working in bins, as you discovered in Lesson 1, the bin container sidebar, which is over here, lists all the bins in the project either as a flat list or organized into folders and that you can create. So in most projects, you'll use multiple bins to organize your material. A new editor might use 1 bin per story. A small project could have 5 to 10 bins. Feature films may have hundreds. So you're going to have tons of different bins depending on the scope of your project. All right, but how do we create new bins? Like many operations in Media Composer, you get to choose how you'll create bins. To create a bin, though, there's a few different ways. We can open the Fast menu in the container sidebar, which is here, and we can click New Bin. Or we can right-click in this empty gray space, and we can do New Bin here. Or we can also hit Command-N, which would create a new bin. Or we could go to File, New, and then you could do New Bin. So there are a million different ways to create new bins in Avid. Renaming bins. Media Composer automatically opens any new bins you create and gives each a default name. The project name plus the word bin, and then a sequential number after that. So when I hit Command-N and made a new bin, we can see it made the project name, and then we added that sequential number after it. So be sure to give your bins meaningful names instead of using the default. For example, it's common to create a bin for story sequences only, another bin for titles, another for music, and another for sound effects, as well as graphics and so on. So creating new bins for each kind of media type and media file so you can be organized. Being organized and being an organized editor is a very big key to getting hired. If they ask you to come in to show them what you got and you are all over the place, nobody's going to be interested in hiring you because it's going to be a mess to work with you, right? So being a tidy and organized person, especially in editing, is very, very important. All right, to rename a bin in the bin container sidebar, you can click the bin name once. So if you just click here, it's going to instantly come up with this gray area, and we can retype a name. So you type the name in the new highlight field, and then you would press enter or return. So I could name this, let's see, what do we want to name this? We'll do audio files. Cool. So that'll be my audio files bin. And then opening and closing bins. In Lesson 1, you opened and closed bins one at a time. In addition, you can open and close multiple bins at once. So right now we have the audio files bin open. I'll double click this so we can have the jacuzzi bin and the audio files bin open. So we can select the bins we want to open or close. To select continuous group, we can shift click. So I'm going to make a few bins here real quick. I'm just going to make a bunch of bins. I'm just going to spam it. So now I have these bins. If we wanted to select multiple bins at once, we could click the top one on the icon and then hold shift and click the bottom one. I think another way you can do it, you can hold command and you can select specific ones. So let's say we only wanted to open every other or close every other. That's another way to do it. And we can also lasso. We could just lasso all of them, and that would select all of them. And then we can right-click the bins, and we can choose whether or not we want to open the selected bins or close them. So now all of these bins have been opened up here. Very, very fancy. Now let's say we wanted to close all these bins. We could click it that way and then the close selected bins will appear here. We can click close selected bins. So now all the bins have been closed, right? Again, if you wanted to select specific ones, you could hold Command or Control, and then you could be clicking through here, and then you could even navigate to the fast menu, open selected bins. So you can right click, or you can use the fast menu here in the upper right, which is always going to be these two little bars. That's the fast menu on all these different pages. You're always going to see that. Awesome. Now, deleting bins. Let's talk about deleting bins. You can delete unwanted bins just as easily. To delete bins, select one or more with the bin icons on the sidebar. We could do it the exact same way we were doing it before, or we could select specific ones and hit delete. We could right-click the selected bin or go to the fast menu, and we're going to find delete in here as well. Delete selected items. So let's say you want to delete all these bottom ones. I could just click the bottom one, hold Shift, and select them all. And then we could go here and we could go delete selected items. Boom, it's going to delete them. It sends the deleted bins to Media Composer's trash folder, and you can double-click the trash folder icon to view deleted items. So if we wanted to see what was going on in the trash bin, there we are. Bingo, there's all our deleted bins. To permanently delete bin files with no undo possible, so once you delete these bins, you can't undo this action. You'll right-click the bin container sidebar menu or fast menu, so you'll make sure you're selected on trash. You'll select the sidebar menu, and then you'll choose empty trash. So right here, empty trash, and we can delete all those bins permanently. It tells you emptying the trash permanently deletes the bins from your drive. Do you really want to do this? The answer is yes, empty the trash. So, and then, oh no, we're out of bins. We can just make more. Command or Control N, you're going to make more. You can also, again, right-click here, new bin. You got a bazillion different ways to make new bins. So there's 3 ways right there. All right, now viewing open bins. By default, Media Composer displays open bins as tabs in the bins container right panel, right? This especially is useful when working on single monitor, such as a laptop. We talked about this a little bit last time. To activate a tabbed bin, do one of the following. You can click the tab with the tab name. So very basic, we have our tabs. You can just click the tab, and that will activate each of the bins. Or you can even hit this little drop down here, and then let's say you had 30 bins open. This list would be very useful because you could go, oh, I want to open audio files, and that would navigate quickly, because if these stack up so much, you might not necessarily be able to read the names at the top, right? So in Lesson 1, you also learned how to customize Media Composer's interface, including the bin layouts. We covered lots of information since then, so let's review 2 bin display customizations. We talked about the subdivided bins, where you kind of separate from the top and bottom. So we could take the jacuzzi bin, we could drag it to the bottom, boom, now we got them stacked. So that's the divided view. And then we have floating bins, where you could just take the bin and you could pull it outside even. Sorry, you could pull it to the outside edge, and then you have a second floating bin here adjacent to. You can also have completely separate bins that have their own floating view. So these guys are like having a second bin container in itself entirely. So I could open all the same bins, here on the side. What am I doing here? Oh, they're already open. Okay, I'm being silly. All right, there we go. So those are the 2 ways, just to review there. Again, you can just click drag to a specific side, and then you've got it. You can adjust the distances, you can open more bins, and you can do the top to bottom stuff. There's all kinds of customization to this, and you can really set it up any way that you like. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look into is identifying objects in your bins, right? So I've said before that in your bins is where your project lives. So as you're working with these projects, you're going to start to recognize the things and the items that are in your bins more and more. I have a screenshot directly from the book with what all of those different icons look like when they're in your bins. So go ahead and take a moment to pause the video here and get familiar with all these different kinds of icons and what they mean as far as bins go. As what they mean in your bins, I should say. Okay, welcome back. So, next thing we're going to move on to is preparing to input video and audio. So before you can start editing, you'll need to get your video and audio assets onto the computer and into Media Composer. The post-production industry calls this process ingesting, while Media Composer uses the term inputting. So we'll be inputting media into Media Composer, and I will be using that term going forward. So getting files onto the computer can be as simple as mounting an SD card, plugging in a flash drive or portable hard drive with a copy of the camera file. So you've gone out, you filmed something, you've brought it back, and you're literally putting it onto the computer. You're going to load it onto the computer itself. So you can always back up the original camera files onto another hard drive for safekeeping. This is highly recommended. So if you're doing any projects here on campus, it is always good to go film your project, take your SD card, and immediately duplicate the files and put them on a flash drive, and then keep that flash drive completely separate from all your project workings. That is going to be a backup of your project no matter what. If everything fails, if all else crashes, if everything somehow gets corrupted and deleted, you will always have another copy of your project, another copy of your raw video that you've already taken. So you can always start over, you can always start back up, but you can't. It's very difficult to start over, especially when you've got actors, you've got talent on set, you've got talent in different places, you've already gone out, you've done a big recording day. Worst thing you can do is lose everything because you've never backed it up. So always back up. So you can add media to your Media Composer project through the following methods. You can tape capture, so this lets you input video and audio through cable connections from videotape deck, satellite, or live camera feed. So this is direct to Avid Media Composer. You can link, so this connects an original media file to your project. Media Composer reads the file, also known as camera native media, from its current location and current format. No media is moved or copied. So to think of, if you could think of it this way, the link option is like this. It is, Media Composer is dependent on the location of a file. So I have some video files here. If I linked these files to my project, if I later moved them, that would be a problem, because Avid Media Composer is going to be searching for these and then using the data from these and the camera native media to edit directly in Avid. So you would never want to move these files. If you moved linked media files, then the link would be broken and you wouldn't be able to continue editing. And then the third way is to import. Import inputs a media file by copying the media to a predefined location while converting it into Avid native media file formatting. So in Media Composer, the term import means to create a brand new copy of an original media file. So if I was going to import the videos from the desktop, these videos would then be moved. There would be a copy made of them, and it would be on Avid itself. So I wouldn't have to worry about moving those files. As you go forward, I can imagine you're going to be doing all these things depending on where you work. You will probably end up linking media files, so a good rule of thumb is to always pick a location where you're going to keep the files that you will edit. Whether or not you plan on importing them or linking them, keeping them in the same location and being organized from the start is very important to being a good editor, right? If your media is going offline because you keep moving it from location to location, people can't edit where they need to, when they need to, you are screwing things up. So again, keep things in the same place. All right, so we're going to be using the source browser. You'll use the source browser to bring media files into your project. This tool combines the controls for linking and importing into a single window, and you'll quickly discover it's set up like a standard operating system window to make it intuitive and easy to use. Okay, so let's get into using the source browser together. So you'll use the source browser to bring media files into your project. This tool combines the controls for linking and importing into a single window. And you'll quickly discover that it's set up like a standard operating system window to make it intuitive and easy to use. So let's explore the source browser interface together, and let's start by opening it. So the way to open the source browser is making sure you're clicked on your bin. You'll go to File, input, and then source browser will be the first option under input, remembering that input is the jargon used in Media Composer. Okay, so the source browser includes 2 panes. So there's the navigation pane. This displays your computer's folders and contains 3 tabs near the top. These 3 tabs are Explore, Favorites, and Recents. So Explore is just the standard kind of opens the different folders that are located on your computer's drive or external drives or linked drives. And then Favorites, which is where you would, let's say we had a favorite, we could click it and then click this star, and that would add it then to this Favorites tab. And then Recent, self-explanatory. If you have project files that you were accessing recently, then that's where the Recents, it would show up in Recents. So like I said, there were the 2 panes. The second pane is the File and Folder Contents pane. This displays the navigation pane selected folder contents either as a list or as icons/thumbnails. So when we click on, B. Harris here, we're going to get all these different folders. So we've got the left side is the navigation pane. It's got the ability to take you forward and backward, and it's going to show the second pane here, which is the File and Folder. So again, navigating through this just like that, very similar to a standard one. All right. So the second thing we're going to look at is a media folder view button. This lets you view camera cards, contents as thumbnails, and things like that. You can also click here. This will show it as thumbnails very similarly. The third thing we're going to look at is the directory path. This displays the path itself. So this is the files path for the folders and files/file folder contents pane. So when let's say we go to desktop, and then we go through desktop to downloads, and the media kit, users, B. Harris downloads, so on and so forth. It's going to have that directory right up here. And it'll look a little bit different if you're on Windows as well. Okay, and then number 4, we have the collapse/expand button. That is right here. This just gives us the ability to extend what we're looking at. Why is it processing? I guess there's so much stuff in each thing. Let me just click on something basic, and then there we go. When we click this drop down, it's just essentially just giving us a little more room to work with as far as files. It lets us see a little bit more. It's a little bit laggy. I apologize. The computer's not running super quickly today. And then we have the link and import buttons. They're here on the left bottom side. So this switches between the 2 input methods and includes a gear icon for quick access to relevant settings. So that little quick access is here. But remember what we were talking about, linking versus importing. Linking is connecting files in the location that they're at. So if you move those files when they were linked, the media would go offline. You wouldn't be able to edit in Media Composer, whereas import brings those files, makes copies, brings them into Avid Media Composer, transcodes them essentially into Avid native media, and then you can edit directly from your Avid project. All right, what's the next thing we're going to look at here? Import resolution menu lists available import formats when you activate the import button. So having this selected, because it was selected on link before, but having it selected on import, we can see the resolution is set to DNX HD SQ. This is a Avid codec, so that is set there. And available codecs for your project will appear here. And depending on what format you set it at the beginning and what kind of video you're importing, all that gets factored in. So we will learn more about codecs and things like that going forward, but I won't confuse you with that now, but that's where that's at. All right, and then import media destination drive lists available media drives for imported media, import mode. So that's over here. So we have the video drive, the audio drive, and those are both connecting to Mac One HD. So that's all routing to. Cool. And then we have the target bin menu. So that would be here. This is the target bin. You're going to select your bins, remembering that I only have I have audio files, and then I have some generic named bins. So it's automatically, I'm just going to click audio files because that's here in my bins. It's one of my bins that I actually have. Cool. And then the import and link button performs the import or link operation when clicked. Again, tabbing between link or import changes how it's consumed into Media Composer. I feel like I just said this, but I'm going to say it one more time. Linking is connecting to media that is external from Avid Media Composer, and it's working with that native camera media so that it's not changing the codec. When you import it, it makes a copy, brings it into Avid Media Composer, and then you can work with it in there rather than worrying about whether or not you're moving files or not. You could just keep them. You can just know that everything's already in Avid, and it really depends on what you're going to use, what you're working on, which import method or link method, input method, I should say, you're going to use. All right. So to open the source browser, I already said this, so we'll choose File, Input, Source Browser. So if that's File, Input, Source Browser, that's how you typically open it. Or you can even right-click in the bin. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. So while you're in a bin, let's say we've got Jacuzzi selected, we can right-click in a bin, and we can do Input Source Browser. That's right there as well. So if you didn't want to navigate up to File and then Input Source Browser, you could just click here, Input Source Browser. Okay, and then you can also go to Tools. It's also in Tools Source Browser here. So there are many ways to do the same things on Avid, and sometimes you're going to be tested on it. So keep your head up, stay attentive. All right, let's move into viewing folders as media volumes. So, excuse me, a common production practice is to offload footage from a camera card to a hard drive while still on set or in the field. So that frees up the card for immediate reuse. So if you're emptying the cards off your camera, the card's empty and you've got available space to continue recording. This process involves copying each card's contents to a well-labeled folder on a hard drive. To retain camera metadata and proper file structure, the entire contents of the camera card get copied to the folder, not just the individual audio or video files. So you would just grab everything and copy it over to your hard drive. To view copy card contents in the source browser, you can select the media folder view button in the source browser. That is this one right here, this little button here. That way Media Composer treats the folder as a medium volume rather than a collection of individual files. So it treats what you're looking at differently, and it would look different if I actually had a camera card here in source browser to toggle this setting on and off. So when you view the folder as a media volume, the source browser displays the top level folder and then the shots inside. Undoubtedly an easier and more efficient way to work. So that's a good feature there when we are working with camera files and getting them directly off the camera's card, right? Depending on your camera model, you may need to download a plugin before Media Composer can read those camera files. To do this, you can go to the Avid AMA plugins, and that's not something we're going to touch on here in class, but just be aware that you may need to use third-party plugins to get your files into Avid Media Composer. All right, so browsing your media files, you can play media files in the source browser before adding them to your project. So let's navigate here. We could go to 06, and we could open these up. Let's change the view here so we can see these. You can also, so when we're viewing them as in frame view, we can click the frame view button just like I did. And then option, we can drag the slider to increase and decrease the size. So this little slider here can zoom in and out so we can actually see what we're looking at. So this could have had 30 videos in it, and we could be zooming in and out just like we do in the bins, right? We can click the file to select it and do one of the following. We can move the cursor over the selected thumbnail to skim the video. So clicking on it, we can just slide it over as if we're playing the video. We can go forward and backward, which is very neat. And we can also press the space bar, and that will just play. Cool. And also note that it'll play from the point that you drag to, so I could play it from here. Pretty neat stuff, right? Cool. So to load a file into the source monitor, so that's back here. Remember, we have our source and record monitors in our composer window. If we wanted to load one like this clip per se, we could double click the file, and then it's going to load automatically back over here, load back here into the source monitor for us. We can also drag the file to the source monitor. So let's say we wanted to, instead of this video, we could play this one. We could drag this over to the source monitor, and it will also play in here if we would like. like it to. Very cool. So those are ways that you can view video items before you actually add them to your project. Let's say we had 300 videos. We didn't know which take we wanted to use. You can scrub through. You can play here. Oh, you got to be selected on it. You can play here, or you can, like I said, double click it, load it in the source monitor, or drag click it into the source monitor, and you can play it there as well. So ways to view videos before you actually end up adding them to your project. All right, but adding a video to your project, after you decide what video files you want to use, you'll add them to a bin in your project. When you place a clip in a bin, it's saved as part of the project. If you close Media Composer or the project and return later, the clip will still be there waiting for you. So when we import these to a bin, when we take these videos, we say, yes, I want both these videos, and we actually do import it after we set the directory, the target bin. You know, I know it's set right now to audio files. We could even add a new bin, make a new bin, and then we could rename it after it gets added. But after we've selected what we want and then we add it, it'll go to our bins. And if we close the whole project, these videos will appear in our bins. Okay. Not that I haven't already said that multiple times before. So let's add some video files as link clips. As mentioned earlier, you can choose to link media or import it to the Media Composer. To add a group of videos files as linked clips in a bin, you can open the source browser, select the link option like we are now, and you can use the navigation and file folder contents panes to navigate to the folder that contains the video files like we have here. We are already navigated to two video files here. And we can click the first one and then shift click the second one. So let's say we had a big list. I could even change this to text view, and I could hold shift and that would select all of these. I could use command and select individual ones, or I could just select the individual ones. I can also lasso, drag, all kinds of options for adding stuff to our project. Let's say you didn't want a lasso drag or wasn't enough space to do so. You had 200 videos that you were going to import. You just hit Command A or Control A, and that will select all the files within a bin, or I guess inside a folder as we're looking at it here in the navigation pane. So yes, we'll select the destination bin at the bottom, like we said before, target bin, and then we'll click the link button at the bottom here. So let's go ahead and import these two clips. I can change the view so we know what we're importing. I'll highlight them, and then I'm going to add it to audio files. I'll add it to a new bin. We'll just do a new bin. And then boom, we have linked these clips to a new bin. So I'm going to go ahead and close the source browser now. We might need to open it up later, but that's okay. So here we are in Jacuzzi. I'm going to rename this bin to video. And then boom, now we have two clips right here in our video bin, and they're here. They are linked, and you can tell they're linked by the little link icon next to the clip. Next to the clip icon. So now we know that there are linked clips in my project. Okay, now that we've learned how to link media files, let's take a closer look at importing videos. When you import media, Media Composer copies that media to a standard location in the Avid media files folder. So importing takes more time than linking, but you'll gain two advantages when you do import. All your media files will become safely stored in Avid's managed media directory. Like I said, it's importing it to the program it's making a copy of, so you don't have to worry about not being able to link to the videos in their folder locations on your computer or your drives, wherever they may be. Overall system performance is better with the Avid native media. That is media that you import into Avid. So when it's imported, it's transcode. It's changed essentially into Avid native media, and Avid it's better. It's got better processing because Avid can communicate with its Avid native media much quicker than linked camera native media. But both still work. So to set up for a video import, you're going to open the source browser, and remember the bazillion ways to do that. We can right click in here. We can do input source browser. We can also go to file, input, source browser. We can also click the fast menu, and we can go input source browser. So any one of the three works. We're going to navigate to maybe some of the video files we want. Here's a bin with a lot of video in it. So what we'll do is we'll select the import option on the bottom left to make sure that we're starting the process properly. We're going to click the gear icon to open the import settings and make the necessary adjustments, and then we're going to click OK after that. So not going to go into too much, but let's look at this a little bit. The default import settings, which you'll use if the video files you import match your project's format. So it's going to match, it should match, because Media Composer is smart, it's going to adapt, it's going to make sure that they're all similar. So if you plan on importing still images or graphic files, you may need to modify these settings and consider the following. To prevent distorting your image on import, select the Resize Image Fit to Format Raster button in the image size adjustment section. So that would be here. And then to import graphics with transparency information, so like PNGs, for example, maybe a logo, you'll likely use the Invert on Import option, which is a default in the Alpha channel section. So Invert on Import. And then to ensure color and brightness import properly, make sure that the scale from full range to legal range is selected in the color levels section. This is an important one. I remember this being on the certification exam. So make sure that you got that scale from full range to legal range. All right, cool. And then one last technical note, the color levels section addresses the color and brightness differences between broadcast television and computer-generated graphic specs. Be sure to check the camera specs before selecting color level options for video files. So you're going to want to make sure that that all lines up and that you're working in the proper formats and settings. Okay, so once you set your import settings, you're ready to finish the import process. To import your video media, go to the source browser, resolution drop-down menu, select the desired video resolution. For example, this one here, remember we have the DNX HDSQ, and then select the video files by either dragging and dropping them to a bin or clicking the import button. So you could just say, oh, I want these four. You could use Command or Control. You could select a few, and then you could just drag and drop them to a bin if you wanted. Or you could be more sophisticated and select them, pick the bin you want them to go to, and go from there. So actually, let's do the caveman option. We'll drag and drop it into our video files bin. Cool. And then some video formats, most notably 8.264, are not supported for import. When you click yes or yes to all, Media Composer uses your import settings to create clips that are Avid native media. So we would want to click yes to all in this situation. And then it's going to go ahead and it's going to transcode and convert these files from the computer, and it's importing them and making Avid native media that we can work with here in Avid. Awesome. So while that's loading, let's try and understand a little bit more about media linking. When you link media, not import, we just finished import, we're linking. When you link media files to your project, Media Composer creates a link or connection between the source clip in the bin and the media files. The media files contain the actual images and sounds. Meanwhile, the source clip is a small file containing metadata, that is information about the media like time code, clip name, and format details. Essentially, it includes the information the system needs to identify and link the media files. So Media Composer stores the source clip information in the bin file. Meanwhile, the media files get stored on the hard drive or memory card. This is all the same stuff I was saying earlier, just understanding the difference between importing and linking. So let's go ahead and close the source browser and keep moving. If media files can't be found and the Media Composer labels, say source clip linked to that media file is media offline, if let's say we have our linked clips here, let's say we had them in our timeline or whatnot, and then all of a sudden it said down here, media offline, that's your indicator. I said this earlier, that's your indicator that the files that are linked were somewhere on your computer or your camera card, and your camera card has been taken out, or someone moved the files from one place on your computer to another. So make sure that you have all your videos in the place that you want them, and that people aren't moving them around while you're editing. This is why it can be very good to have your own flash drive, or we're going to be using the Avid Nexus eventually as we go further into the semester to do all this stuff. All right. Okay, so we've spent enough time inputting video media into Media Composer. We did the link and import. Let's move on to inputting audio media into Media Composer. And as you could have guessed, there is two options, linking and importing. So let's start with linking. Let's get some, okay. So when you link audio media, either as an audio only files or along with video, you'll configure the track setup and then you'll link. So to set up, let's check the audio track configuration. So we'll go to File, Input, Source Browser. That's up here, or we could just right-click in a bin and we can do Input Source Browser. There's a bazillion ways to do it. So we'll select the link option on the bottom left, and we'll make sure we're selected on link. It might have been on import. Make sure you're selected on link. Then we'll hit the gear icon in the link settings. In the link settings, we'll activate the link options tab, which is here. And then in the multi-channel audio section, we'll click the edit button, which is here. And we'll configure the tracks to set the multi-channel audio window. So some configuration notes here real quick. Let me just make sure this is selected. Configuration notes, by default, the multi-channel audio section is set to none. This means Media Composer will create mono audio tracks for any audio media files you link to. So it's always going to be default to mono. In the Set Multi-Channel Audio window, click the Format button to group two audio tracks as a stereo pair, for example, music. So if you wanted to, you would select this to make sure they were linked as a stereo pair. And then to explore all grouping possibilities, click and hold the Format button. Format button. This reveals the menu of options. So there's all that extra information here. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to click OK here to keep moving forward. So once configured, you can click OK on both the Set Multi-Channel Audio window and link settings, and then set the audio files in the source browser. Select the audio files in the source browser, and then drag the selected files to the bin, or we can set a target bin. So we'll go ahead and click OK here. And we're going to make sure we select the audio files. This is what we got. We have Jacuzzi Wave. And we'll go ahead and we can pick, we're going to do audio media, and we'll link to one of our bins. I changed it from audio file to audio media. So now we have that. We have the Jacuzzi Q audio file. This is a linked audio file. We can tell because it's got little waveforms in it, and it's got the linked chain. Okay. All right. In lesson 3, you'll edit both stereo and mono clips into the sequence. To get an idea of how these configurations look in the timeline, I have this image here for you. Let me go ahead and pull it up. I must have closed it. Let me pull it up. It is not there. It's right here. Womp. So in the bottom, let me pull this up simultaneously with Media Composer. So these are audio tracks. These little audio tracks dictate how audio works in your project. It's going to appear down here in your timeline once it's set up. But this is, on the left, we have stereo is on the left, and then the mono is on the right. So we have the different configurations for how audio will play in the track. This is going to make a lot more sense later, but right now, for your reference, this is what this looks like. And if you have any questions for yourself about what's the difference between mono and stereo, I have this little Google tab open for you, so go ahead and pause and read that at your own disclosure. Awesome. All right, notice that the stereo configuration only uses one track, while the mono configuration requires 2 tracks. I love how I closed that so quickly. Let me pull that back up. Again, notice how stereo is only using 1 and mono is using 2. Good news, the configuration for tracks for audio import follows the same process. So let's move now into importing. And as you probably guessed, we're going to start by clicking in here, Input, Source Browser, and then we're going to navigate to some other audio media. We'll ensure that the import option is selected this time, not the link option. And then we'll click the import audio tab. Right, and then we'll click the edit button in the multi-channel audio section. This is all optional stuff, and then we can click the format button and we can select those two tracks again like we wanted. But we'll just forego that this time. We'll just leave it the way it is, and we'll import as a mono. Then we'll click OK, and then we'll select the files we want to import. So we've got everything we selected. Everything we want to import is this, and we'll go ahead and we'll click import. We're going to send it to the same target bin, and it's going to appear here. So now we have two different media files, audio media files, I should say. All right, we are ready to review our clips and edit our program. Why does Media Composer have two separate but identical multi-channel audio options for linking and importing media? This is because the separate settings provide flexibility when configuring tracks. So you can set one configuration for linking. You can set one configuration for linking and an alternative for importing. This prevents the constant need to switch settings and options. So you could, on those multi-channel import tracks, we could be pre-configuring them. So it's always set up for one way or another. So we know how to import media with the drag and drop, and we know how to do a lot of other things. But what if we wanted to delete unwanted clips? Let's say we had video media. I'm going to close that. Let's say we had video media that we wanted to delete, or audio media we wanted to delete. We can delete, and I'm pretty sure it works the same way you would think it would. You select the clips that you don't want anymore, so you could click one and hold Command and select a few others, or you could drag select, or you could click one, hold Shift, click the other one, and it would select all of them. You could do Command A, that would select all of them. But let's say we didn't like this clip or this clip, so we'll select them both. Oh, not that one, this one. And we wanted to delete them. We could hit the delete key on our keyboard or the backspace key, depending on which operating system you're on. So we could just hit that, and then it's going to bring up this little dialog box. So in the delete dialog box, we'll click the check boxes to select items, and then to delete and click OK. So we'll delete the master clips, we'll delete the associated media files, and we'll make sure it's all selected. And then we would do all or none. We'll do all. You could just quick click all or none. You click all. And then all you have to do is obviously you'll click OK, and then it's going to hit you with that message. Are you sure you want to delete media files? And you'll click yes, delete. And that will then delete clips that you don't want anymore. Okay, the time is approaching. We're getting prepared to edit, right? I'm sure you've been sitting here thinking, well, I thought I was going to learn editing. We're getting there, trust me. All right, so preparing to edit, let's get into it. The first step in the editing process happens well before you make your first cut. During this step, you'll review footage and organize shots into bins. So this organization is going to help you in the long run, trust me. In large feature-length projects, this is a complex and formal process that requires one or more full-time assistant editors. For this course, you'll use a simple process that works well for both the Jacuzzi project that you created and we're going to create during these first two exercises. Before you start editing, you'll find the following. You're going to do the following, I should say. You're going to watch the footage. You'll set marks on selected sections. You'll name or rename the source clips and organize them into bins. And you'll add comments or keywords. So watching the footage. To effectively organize clips into bins, you'll watch the footage. Duh. You'll need to identify clips and possibly rename them or add comments. More importantly, you'll evaluate the footage with a critical eye to assess what you have to work with. Most editors are not on set during production. Some editors even specifically avoid being on set as to not influence their perspective of the footage. So this may be your first opportunity to view the material. Take it seriously. On the other hand, you may be on set, or you may even be the person holding the camera. Even if this is the case, you'll want to watch the footage critically. You may notice nuances in the dailies. Dailies are videos that come on a daily basis after production that you missed on set, like the distractions in the background or focus and exposure issues. Maybe what you remember as a highly emotional moment on set falls flat when you see it on camera or when you're watching the video later. Or maybe you discover a gem that you didn't know was there. So maybe you're watching the footage back and you notice, somebody makes a face when you're not rolling, but that works as a perfect B shot or reaction shot later. As an editor, this is your only chance to get that first impression with the material. So savor it, pay attention to the experience, and be fully in the moment, right? You're really looking for what are the best moments in the video that you have to work with. So thoughts and impressions that surface as you watch the footage for the first time are invaluable. So what are you looking for in the footage and how to critique the talent performance? Talent is the person who's performing, by the way, so actors are talent. Will vary depending on the piece's genre, but you always want to ask yourself the following questions. Which performances are the best? Which performances are the weakest? Which performances convey the best emotion? Which moments are most believable? When do you find yourself getting absorbed into the story? Which images are most visually striking or best convey the mood of the scene? And then how extensive is the coverage? Do you have the options for cutting around weak performances? Which sounds define the scene? Are there sounds present where and when they need to be? And is it hard to hear and understand the dialogue? So very important things you're going to be paying attention to, and things you're going to be including in the notes, marking out while you're working through this. You're going to want to be in the different views. You're going to be wanting using script view. You're going to be wanting to use text view, and evaluating each piece for itself. All right, so above all, enjoy this moment, right? Here at the beginning of your project, the pressure is at its lowest and the possibilities are at their highest. So you have nowhere to go but up. You have a great experience, hopefully, in front of you. So let's talk about loading, playing, and marking clips. So as you experienced in lesson 1, you can play clips in its bin. So if we were to switch to frame view, we can click one and we can hit the space bar, or we can hit 5, and those will both play the selected clip. But you can also load clips into the source monitor. So while we're reviewing these clips, let's say we're in text view, and I want to just go through this. I want to load each clip into the source monitor. I want to see it on a bigger screen so that I can really evaluate what I'm looking at. You'll double click the icon and that will load it into the source monitor. Additionally, you can just drag it in and then that will load it into the source monitor as well. But before the editing starts, you would go through each individual clip and you would play. Now you can click play here, you can click the space bar, you can click 5. You got all kinds of options as far as playing here in the source monitor. But there's something you're definitely going to want to know, and that is playing the clips using the JKL keys on your keyboard. This is kind of one of the first steps you take towards working mostly with keys and trying to avoid using some of the interface. I mean, there are times where you will use this, these extra buttons, but it would be better for you to be proficient with just working off the keyboard. So you'll use the JKL keys to shuttle through footage forward and backward at varying speeds. The JKL functions pioneered by Avid are nearly universal in editing apps today. So let's say, for instance, I go here and I launch up YouTube. I could click any random old video. I don't care. No notifications. No, thank you. Of course, I get hit with an ad. Okay. You can use JKL on all kinds of different sites. So I can use JKL here. K pauses, L goes forward 10 seconds, and J goes backwards 10 seconds. This has been a feature on YouTube for years, and this, like it says in the book, was a pioneered thing directly from Avid. So again, K is play, and J backwards, L forward. But let's move into Avid, where the features do similar things. Okay, and these JKL keys work as follows. I have taken a screenshot directly from the book for your enjoyment and for your convenience. So here it is. There you have where JKL is located on your keyboard, and here's what each function does. To play forward at normal speed, press the L key one time. Normal speed is typically between 24, 25, and 30 frames per second. Your project frame rate is dependent on this. So let's try it. We'll double click. We have a clip loaded into the monitor, and we will click the L key. There. Playing forward at normal speed. All right, next we have, to stop, you'll press K. You can also hit spacebar, that will stop as well. And then to play backwards at normal speeds, you'll hit the J key. So here we are. All right, we can stop it with the K key again. All right, and then to play forward faster than normal speed, you'll press the L key repeatedly. Every time you press the L key, the system will play faster at 1, 2, 3, 5, and 8 times normal speed, respectively. These are numbers that you will have to remember. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. All right, so let's see how that works. We can see it goes forward very quickly. Play it in reverse. And you can do the same thing by tapping the J key. You can go fastward. You can go backward faster at 1, 2, 3, and 5, and 8 times speed. Yep. So there you have that. Nice. What else can we do? You can play backward at a quarter speed if you press and hold the K plus J keys. So if I hold the middle key and then I hit the J key, it will play forward and backwards at different speeds. So I'm going to click here. We'll click K to play. K. Why isn't it working? So now I can hold it and it's going forward at a quarter speed. And now it's going backwards at a quarter speed. And I am holding K the entire time while I do that. Forward, backward. Nice. All right. And then, like I said, forward and backwards with the KJ and KL. And then we can move forward or backward one frame at a time by pressing the K key and then quickly tapping either key. So if we're selected on it, I can hold the K key and I can just tap one frame at a time. So if there's very precise edits you want to make, very precise endpoints you can make, if there's a beat or something that happens, that's how you get that precision before you set your endpoint. And we're going to talk about endpoints in just a second here. So you can take the same techniques described here to play a clip in a bin's frame or script view. This can help you quickly review a clip and make sure it's the one that you want before loading it into the source monitor. So you can even do this here. So if we switch it to frame view, all these same keys I just described are going to work here in frame view. Playing the clip in the bin does change the representative frame. So remember when we talked about changing the frames 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever, using the JKL keys, that's going to do the same thing. All right, let's move into marking clips. So as you watch the footage, you'll want to mark portions that interest you. To do this, you'll use the edit marks, specifically the in and out marks. So the in and out marks are very important. Let me just say that. Since every editing application includes some form of editing marks, you may recognize this from other programs. In and out marks indicate a clip's region that you might use later. So Media Composer remembers your marks. The next time you open that clip, the marks are there. So marking clips at this stage is not only speeds up the editing process, but keeps you from having to memorize what parts of clips you liked or things that you wanted to include later when you're editing. You can add only one set of marks per clip, per source clip. So to mark multiple regions of interest, you can leverage other features in Avid Media Composer, like markers and subclips, but these features won't be covered until we get into Avid Fundamentals 2 in the latter half of this semester. So you can find the buttons for setting edit marks on either side of the play button on each monitor. So this is the in mark, this is the out mark, this is obviously play, and when you play and click it again, it will be pause. So essentially what you're doing is along this clip, I'm sliding the position indicator here, by the way. So along this clip, let's say we want to, obviously we don't want all this first stuff. We don't need when she snaps it, we want to go right before they actually start the scene. So right about here, we would set an in mark, and now we have an in mark, and Avid's going to remember this in mark. And we'll play, we'll probably play till we're like, okay, let's stop right here. I want to stop right as he touches his hat and pulls it down, and then you'd set an out mark. Avid's going to remember this region within here, and then later when you add this clip to the timeline, it's going to only add this section. It's going to exclude this front part and this back part here. So let's look at these buttons. I have a screenshot here. So here we go. Here's a screenshot directly from the book, obviously. We've got the different markers. We got the mark in, mark out, mark clip, clear in, clear out, clear marks, go to in, go to out, play in and out. These are the different buttons, and these are the different keys that they're mapped to on your keyboard. So you saw me just put the in and out marks on this clip. You can do that with the E and I or the R and O, so marking in. And I like to use I and O because you think in, you think out, and you got your in, you got your out, and that to me is the fastest way to do it. So you're playing with JKL, and then if you look just above JKL on your keyboard, you're going to see that I and O. That just makes the most sense to me. But if you wanted something a little more comfortable, a little more on the left side, using your left hand, you could use the E and R keys to do that in and out editing. Now, let's say we wanted to start over. We can clear specific ones. We can, with D, we can clear the in. So let's say I set an in and it's not quite where I need it to be. Just by clicking here, I can hit D and that will remove that mark. And then I can move the position indicator or play, and then I can reset that in mark with the E or the I key. Again, I prefer I and O for setting in and out. Same thing with the out. I could move the out by removing the mark with F. I could take away that mark, and then let's say I decide I want him to take the hat off, and then I can set that out mark with O or R, and then I've got that new one. If I don't like where either of them are, I can hit the G key, and that will clear all of them. That will remove both the in and the out mark from this clip. So again, I to set an in, O to set an out, or you get E to set an in, R to set an out, D to remove it, F to remove it. It's all relative. And if you have a Avid Media Composer keyboard, you can buy specific keyboards. It will have all those functions mapped out directly on it. I think I have, if I go to the downloads folder, I have one of those screenshots of what that keyboard looks like. Yeah, here it is. I mean, we've got all these same buttons here, and they're marked out physically right here in front of me on the keyboard. So if you wanted to speed up your editing process, that's another way you could do it. All right, and then the Q and W keys, you can go to in, go to out, and then you can play the in and out with 6. So let's test that out here. So let's say we're over here and we want to quickly snap to the in mark. We can hit Q. That brings us the position indicator clear over here. Hit W, can go to last frame. And then again, if we just wanted to play this region within this clip to make sure we liked it, we could just hit 6 on the keyboard, and it's going to play that in between. Oh, I don't like that, right? She said action, and then the scene starts, so I'll hit I to move that in. You don't necessarily have to remove a mark before you put another one in. Just know that it's always going to replace where the other one was, and that first mark won't be there anymore.
Back it up, boys. Huh? He doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it?
That's what he said.
But it's already off the truck.
Well, put it back on, genius.
But it's Friday up.
I know.
We'll have to go all the way back to the warehouse and pick out traffic.
I know.
All right, let's say I want to change shot here. I could move my out mark. I could clear it with F, and then I could set a new out mark with O. All right, I hope that's all making sense to you. Let's keep moving along here. Okay, so adjusting and organizing clips. Let's move on here. So as you watch this raw footage in the source monitor, you might find clips that are too loud. You can quickly adjust these as you encounter them. It's probably one of the best things you can do. Keep in mind, any adjustments you make to the clip will carry over into the segments as you add them into the sequence. So once you make an audio adjustment on these clips from the bins, they will they will maintain that audio adjustment when they're brought into the timeline and made into segments. So adjusting audio levels of source clips. So To adjust source clips audio level, you use the audio mixer. This can be found in the Tools drop-down menu. So we'll go to Tools, and then we can scroll down here to Audio Mixer. We'll click this, and it will open as its own floating window. You'll see audio level adjusters come up. You'll see audio faders, and they'll display as long as you're selected on the source guide. So if I load one into the source monitor, then I am adjusting. This is the same stereo track that is connected to this clip that is loaded in the source monitor. So if I play this,
Hey, that's fine, huh?
Yeah. Scene 7, Slate 32, take 3.
Thank you. Mark it. Sorry, no. Thank you. And set.
And action.
Ladies, if the man doesn't want it, he doesn't have to take it.
so you can see it going up into the yellow a little bit. So the audio mixer fader display, this is for a single stereo track, but you can have up to, you'll have, depending on what type you're using, you might have monos or whatever. You might end up with more than one fader here. You might have 2 sliders or more. So a good starting level for most sound is between -20 and -8 decibels. So if we slide this one down, we'll go to 15. We'll go -15 just to start, and then we'll listen to that and see if that's any better.
If he doesn't want it, he doesn't have to take it.
All right, it's significantly better, obviously, with way louder before, so we can be happy with that.
If he doesn't want it,
Yeah, if you just want to save your ears, that's a good way to start. So that is how you adjust, and once you make that adjustment, that'll stay saved. That you don't need to do anything else; it'll stay that way. So we can move on to the next clip, and we can start adjusting the audio from here on this next one, and so on and so forth. And like I said before, Media Composer, bazillion ways to customize it. We can move this audio mixer tool really anywhere as long as we're snapping it to these green bars. I do like it as a floating independent window. That I like that a lot better. And I could even adjust this and make it a little smaller, and it's going to still fit. And this is where Avid is just working with you in your regular workflow, and it's adapting for what you want to do. All right, so you have sorted out your clips. You're still sorting out your clips. You're figuring out what you want to do, and you're going to organize your clips in the bins now. In Lesson 1, you explored rearranging clips within a bin. As you work with more complex projects, you'll want to reorganize your material from the start so you can easily find what you want when you want it. So for now, this means moving source clips to another bin, grouping smaller types of clips, and giving clips more meaningful names. Thankfully, this process is easy and intuitive. It's probably exactly what you think it would be. So let's start with to move source clips from one bin to another. You're going to open the source destination bins as tabs, and in the right panel, the bin container. So we've got audio files, we've got video files. Let's say I wanted to do we do CU, we'll do close-ups. So we could have like a close-ups folder of just shots that are close-ups, like this one. This looks like a close-up too, and this one as well. So let's say we want to move these close-up shots. We can easily just drag them, and we can drag them to this audio tab, or we can drag them to a different destination bin. So in this case, I want to go to close-up, so I can just let go, and Avid automatically opens up this close-ups page as soon as you go to drag it to one of these bins, a bin container. So now that bin's open, and we have those 3 shots, and we can change the different views, and we can see how they are, and you can just start breaking down and organizing your shots and your audio in different ways. So let's talk about adding comments and keywords. As you learned again in Lesson 1, you can leverage the bin script view to add production notes, comments, and keywords. These notes will help you remember the clip's details and locate clips with Media Composer's robust find features in the future. So we could switch over to script view, and I could be like, the snapper was too high. I don't know if I wanted to be picky with the production assistant or whatever. I could also mark this clip where he looks down too much. So I could be remembering that. So later when I'm editing, I can search for these clips, just because I remember specific things about them, there's a find feature on Avid, and it searches across all your bins. It searches across your comments and whatnot. I could even put what lines are spoken in each shot. So I could play this clip and we could see.
Get up, boys. Huh? He doesn't want it.
So we could add like doesn't want it in this clip, and then we can reference that later, so we know what kind of shots we're working with. Cool. So those are some quick features, and we can tab back through, and we know that in text view, we can still see these comments. He doesn't want it, so it's still smaller, but you can still see these. And then we got thumbnail view and script view. And don't forget, you can just click and drag, and you can move files to different bins. You can do all kinds of stuff. Well, let's talk about saving your work. So as you know, Media Composer automatically saves at regular intervals. I talked about that in the last lesson. Despite this, you'll want to be saving your project by yourself. I said this too. Events like power outages and mishaps and Avid crashing, it's a good habit to get into, to be saving constantly. So I was talking earlier, I said that little asterisk next to these bins meant that they weren't saved yet. You can save one bin or multiple bins at the same time, but the way to do it is you'll click the bin you want to save, so you can select it in one of these tabs, and then you'll press Command S or Control S, and that will literally just save it. So that just saved this bin. So now all this information that I put in, this text, and the fact that these bins are in this new CU bin, close-ups bin, have been saved. If you want to save all bins, there's two things you can do. You can click in the bin container sidebar here, and you can hit Command S, and that will save all the bins. So all these tabs we have open, we can see the asterisks have disappeared. Or you can just go to File, Save All, and this accomplishes essentially the same thing. It will save all the bins in your project, and again, bins are the central hub of your project. That's where all your assets live. That's where the updated changes to your sequences and your timeline, that's all lives in these bins. So saving them is the key to success. All right, sweet. That just about wraps it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next lesson. Bye.